This is 40k Today. Small enough to fit on the new minimum-sized boards. Clever enough to work out what kind of terrain we're in. And Overwatch, we get that for free.
Hello and welcome to 40k Today. We come to you every day with a 15-minute dose of 40k goodness from our heart to your ears. I'm your host, John Damaris, and today on the program, Salty John becomes decidedly unsalty about the new missions, and Zach Becker gives us an update on the London GT. But first, we got to hit up our poll question of the week. Okay, our poll question of the week. How did your favorite faction fare after the point changes in hashtag new 40k? Let us know in the comments which faction that is. Some great discussion, and it looks like about 2/3 of you feel like your faction fared pretty well. There has been an absolute firestorm around the new GT mission pack from GW. Salty John often writes for Frontline Gaming, and he recently wrote a great piece about judging the new missions after playing them and waiting to judge them till after we have some experience with the game. We talk about that article and the concepts behind it as it's an important discussion to have. John Weiermuller, did I say that right?
You did. Unlike Jason Horn, you know how to pronounce it.
Welcome back to the show. For people that don't know, your online moniker is Salty John, and normally you give up some pretty epic rants about the state of 40k or what's going on. Is that true?
Yeah, I can. I can get up there with the rants.
But today we're the rants and the memes. But today we're doing something different. I recently saw that you wrote an article for Frontline Gaming about the new mission pack, and I wanted to get into that because I think you raised some very good points, and it's a discussion that I really want people to have because there's a lot of, I'm going to call it raging negativity out there that I don't think is justified, and so let's get into it.
Sure.
So why don't you tell everybody the premise of your article, and then we'll talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, so the basic gist of the article, and it is a little long, but I think it's worth the read, is to give Warhammer 9th edition a chance. In particular, give the GW GT missions and packet a chance. So I actually wrote a similar article when 8th edition came out, believe it or not, because surprisingly the internet melts down over new stuff because people don't like change. But I didn't feel the article I wrote for 8th was anywhere near as like necessary as the one I wrote for Frontline for 9th. And I just felt compelled to do it because I was reading all kinds of stuff on like competitive 40K on Facebook and other places, Reddit. I mean, Reddit is kind of a cesspool sometimes, but you know, like you see this stuff and you're like, you haven't even played the game.
Yeah.
It hasn't even been out. And like, there's been 0 tournaments played using the format at all. And we are like having conversations where there are people convinced the entire thing is broken and terrible and bad. And we haven't even it's not even released yet. Like it's the 20th today and it doesn't come out for 5 more days officially, you know?
Right. And so let's talk about it for a second. A couple of points I want to raise, and I want to see if you agree with me. First, 8th edition armies are not going to work very well in 9th edition missions. So, so people have to give it time for people to adjust and learn what's important in playing the missions. And so armies are going to have to be adjusted, but it's going to take time to learn that. And so if you watch somebody play like an 8th edition style gunline army that's there to pick you up off the table over 3 turns and then win the game on turns 4, 5, and 6, that army doesn't work in 9th edition.
No.
So of course, if you watch an army like that play in a 9th edition mission and it gets smoked, you're like, man, this mission is broken. I'm like, no, actually the army is broken and you need to adjust what you're playing with, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't hear people complaining that they couldn't use their 7th edition army in, last year's OVO.
Right.
The game was different. It's fundamentally different. And 8th edition, although 8th edition led into 9th, and 9th edition is like builds on the great things from 8th. It's not a 1-to-1. You can't just slot stuff in. I think a really good example is something that looks to me to be fairly powerful is Cousteau's bikes, which were not powerful at all at the end of 8th, but they were kind of good like for a while there. And that's a good example of like you have to adjust. Cousteau's players will need to adjust. They might need to bring the bikes off the shelf and spray them with the high-powered air to get all the dust off. Like you're gonna have to do that kind of stuff. And so I totally agree. If you're watching battle reports and people are playing their 8th edition armies, and you're like, "Wow, that army sucks now." Yeah, and that's by design that it sucks now.
Yeah. And let's talk about this for a second. So another thing that I think is something that's lost in all this change is actually really good and healthy for all of us, because let's be honest, towards the end of an edition, a lot of things are kind of solved. You kind of know what works in the edition and kind of what doesn't. And now we get to go on that journey of exploration with all the pieces at our disposal again. And some stuff is going to come out of the wash as being better than it ever was in 8th, and some stuff's going to come out of the wash as being worse than it was in 8th. But by and large, the point has, at least for me, has never been solving the equation. The point is the journey, of trying the different things and learning what works and what doesn't, and having fun along the way.
Yep, I agree. And you see this a lot with video game players too. There's like a specific set of players who play video games where they're like, yeah, I played The Witcher 2 18 times, but I won't give The Witcher 3 a chance.
Right, yeah, because it's different.
Yeah, because it's different. Those two games are very different from each other, even though they're the same IP, right? So, and you get this issue with 40K players too a lot, where they're like, well, I was super comfortable with this edition of 40K. I won't play this next edition of 40K, or I won't give it a chance because. And so we get caught in these ruts. And one of the ways to get yourself out of that rut is to try something new. Like, that's something that's very common for people to be like, oh my God, I was feeling stuck in a rut, so I tried this new thing. I tried a different restaurant, right? For some people, that's actually crazy for them to like go out of their comfort zone for their like 5 regular restaurants or whatever. It's very similar. And a lot of people get stuck in those ruts, and it really is healthy to try to break them. And I think a lot of us are very stuck in a rut right now, just with the way everything's going in the world. And I made that point in my article, which is we're living through, like in living memory, unprecedented times. And that has an effect on you. And because it has an effect on you, it has an effect on everything you do and take part of, which means your hobby also.
Yeah, it's going to color your perception, right? It's going to put a pall of negativity around it, because there's a lot of negative stuff going on in the world. And even if you have the best of attitudes, that does weigh on you. It does affect your perception. It does exacerbate things that you see, like something that might not bother you much might bother you a lot more in today's times, and totally understandable. No judgment here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Before I let you go, the last thing I want to talk about really quickly is, I don't know if you're friends with any of the playtesters, but I've talked to several playtesters about 9th edition and specifically the new missions. And I want to give some people some hope. And they all tell me that as you learn how to play the missions, they become more balanced, in that they're very different. You have to play sort of with a different mindset in order to do well at them. And it's just a learning curve, right? So.
Oh yeah. I've talked to multiples of them. I don't think anybody will be shocked to know that I saw a lot of the rules in their totality already. I'm not a playtester, but it's if you look at it, everything was intrinsically designed in this edition with consideration for things like the recommended layouts, the missions, the core rules, the way they redesigned terrain in particular. So they looked at the edition in a total aspect when they were redoing this. And that also feeds into that GT packet, So people really, one of the reasons I was like, I have to say something with this article, like give it a chance, because if you do give it this chance and you allow it to really come to fruition, I think this edition is going to feel the best we've had for competitive play, simply because of the way it was all designed to work together. And like you're right, like every playtester out there is saying the same things. And I don't think it's a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's because they get paid or because of an NDA or whatever. Like, they're not really getting paid.
Yeah. Here's just a pro tip. Nobody's getting rich off playtesting. As a matter of fact,
right.
They are all of the playtesters. And I will say, I usually don't like to use like absolutes, but I will say all of the playtesters are doing it out of a place where they love the game and they want to make it good. So, And that's every playtester I've ever talked to. That's the only thing that will keep you playtesting, because it is the most thankless, awful job ever.
And it is actually a lot of work.
An absolute ton of work. Yeah.
So, basically that's all I got to say on that one. Is you just need to give it a chance, because it is all designed to work together. It really, really is. And I think that we do a disservice to the hobby and like our love of competitive 40K to not give it that chance. I mean, there's been 0 events even run with it. Like, let's give it a chance to play a couple events with it and change your mindset and move on from 8th edition into 9th with new lists, and then see what it's like.
Right. And then understand that GW has proven now that if it is horribly, irrevocably broken, they'll fix it. I mean, they'll fix it. Like they've they fixed Iron Hands, they fixed Space Marines. That it might be 3 months, but come on, guys, 3 months is a short period of time. But at least give it a good, open-minded attempt. Track your results, make your changes, see if you can improve upon your results. So, for example, like mobility is really important in the new edition. Durability is really important in the new edition. Being able to kill things is much less important in the new edition than it ever was before. Like, you still want to take stuff off objectives, but it's not like you have to kill something every turn, like you did in the old ITC mission. So it's just different, and different's okay. Like, you just have to adjust, and that's part of the fun, and that's part of the exploration, and part of the joy of building your armies and putting it all together. So, give it a shot.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite part of watching all of it unfold, all the rants, all the YouTube videos, all that stuff, is that you get people who are using anecdotal evidence saying going first is super broken. I've won 70% of my games going first. And then you have people like I think it was Biff Pod, Colin won 4 of his 5 games, all of them going second.
Yeah.
And so the anecdotal evidence is there to support either side of what it is you particularly want to argue on this topic right now, which to me should show us that there's a lot going on that we still need to work through. And again, the game's not even officially out yet. So there's nobody who's played enough games of this to really know. I don't even think many of the play testers have really played enough games to really understand exactly what the meta will look like, exactly what's going to be good. I love Tabletop Titans videos, but even then, in some of theirs, they make some pretty big mistakes a couple of times. And you're like, well, see?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I mean, that's what you would expect. All right, John. Well, thank you for writing that article. We'll definitely link it in the show notes. Everybody should take the time to read it. Everybody should take the time to take a deep breath. And let's go enjoy this edition. And then if it needs to be fixed, we'll fix it.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, everyone, let's all take a step back and track our results of the new missions and see where we end up. Special thanks to John Weiermuller for stepping up into the breach against this tide of negativity. Today's episode of 40K Today is brought to you by Frontline Gaming. Frontline Gaming is a one-stop shop for all your Warhammer hobby needs, discounted products, American-made gaming mats and terrain, and a full line of miniatures painting service and daily hobby content. And this can all be found at frontlinegaming.org. Welcome back. One of the biggest and best events in the world is the London GT. Zach Becker has put in a ton of work at making that event what it is today. He swings by to give us an update on what's happening with this prestigious event. Zach, thanks for coming on the show. We're super excited to talk about LGT. Now, I guess just to get it out of the way, this year's LGT is canceled, and I don't think we need to say much more about that. Is there anything you want to talk about around that real quick?
No, I'm sure anyone that hasn't been living under a rock for the last, or for all of 2020, actually. Unfortunately, we were due to run it in May, had to postpone because of Corona. And as it stands at the moment, the government still isn't allowing gatherings of over 30 people. And given that our 40K tournament alone is over 10 times that limit, we've had to cancel, unfortunately. But good news is, in tandem with the cancellation, we're able to start announcing the cool stuff we've been planning for next year, which until now hasn't been announced. So,
well, let's talk about that. That's exciting. So, for people that have been living under a rock, to use your vernacular, the LGT, or the London Grand Tournament, is one of the largest in Europe. Is that correct?
As far as singles events goes, we're the second largest in the world after the LVO. There is a 500-player Spanish team tournament, but as it's played in Spanish, it doesn't seem to have percolated around the world. Unlike the LGT, which is very much an international tournament, and that's unfortunately one of the reasons we had to cancel it, because about 50% of our attendees travel from other countries. So
right, Roger that. Totally get that. So let's talk about plans for the future. You guys have behind the scenes been cooking up some pretty cool announcements, and I want to get into it. Well, I'll let you start.
Yeah. So the main thing we always have to struggle with is we're simultaneously a tournament that's been designed to give the people what they want in terms of being appealing to the mass audience of 40K, so gamers who may only go to one event a year, as well as trying to be appealing to hardcore gamers who want the most competitive experience possible. And that's always been a trouble, because most of the former only want to come for 5-6 games maximum over 2 days, and the latter want to have a definitive winner like you do at the LVO. So one of the cool things we've got in line for 2021 is we're actually running over the weekend onto a bank holiday, which is an English governmental holiday. So everyone has the day off work, which means that we're able to have a cut to the final top 8 or 16 or whatever it ends up needing to be on the Monday. And it means no one needs to take an extra day of work because they've already got it. And part of that is we are offering the last night of the event in terms of hotels, comped for anyone that makes the final cut, as well as additional transportation home. So if you come down and you're only expecting to maybe go 4 out of 5, and then you get lucky and you go 5 out of 5 and you make the final cut, you don't need to worry about booking an extra night in a hotel or traveling home an extra day later, because we're going to cover that for anyone that makes the final cut.
So that's part of your prize. You get an extra day, right? With accommodations paid for by the LGT. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean it's great, because it's not just a prize for the ultimate winner; it's a prize for anyone that goes 5 out of 5 for the main event. For the Saturday Sunday tournament, which has always been a 5-round event. Now we have capacity to go 5 rounds for the Saturday Sunday, as well as an additional 4 rounds if we need it on the Monday. So potentially, we can do a 9-round event, which is I haven't got my maths in front of me, but I think is good enough for 1,024 players or whatever. So One day we'll make it over the 4-figure mark, and this is the mechanism we've got now to make sure that we only have one undefeated player.
I dig that. And then the people that go home on that Monday, right, who didn't make the cut or whatever, you'll be able to stream those finals games, those final matchups, which will all be very compelling, I'm sure. It'll just be like a great win for everyone, because they're not playing in the tournament. They actually get to watch all the really cool matchups, rooting for their buddies or their favorite players or whatever. So I think that's a very clever way to lay it out. Well done, sir.
Thank you very much. And the thing I always tell everyone is, you can come to London GT and dovetail it with a holiday in London. And this gives you an entire day where, you don't even have to go back home on the Monday, because everyone's got the day off work. So you can hang out in London for the day and then maybe just tune in for the final in the evening. Or because our venue is effectively an athletic stadium, you can even come down and watch the final game live, because we've got more than enough space than we need for just the final top 4 tables or top 3 tables, whatever it ends up being.
Okay, well, the event sounds great. So one last question. Mm-hmm. You got room for a chubby Asian to come play in your event?
Well, we've already got a few of those, so I'm sure we can fit one more. But everyone's welcome. This year, we've really focused on our food and beverage provision, because that was one of the things that our feedback from last year said we needed to improve on. So, chubby Asians come down, skinny Asians come down, anyone can come down. And, most people might end up leaving a little bit more chubby than when they arrived.
All right, everyone, you heard it here first. You make sure you put LGT 2021 on your calendars. Do you have the dates for that yet, or?
Yeah, so we're running 4 days. We're running Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. The Friday is the last day of April, and then Saturday, Sunday, Monday is the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of May. So the main GT is the 1st and 2nd of May. The final cut's on the 3rd, and then we have the Friday night, which is more sociable events, doubles, RTTs, that sort of thing, if you want to come down, have a few beers, and make some new friends.
Rock on. Well, I will see all you guys there, because I think I'm going to be there next year. So,
awesome.
All right. Thanks so much, Zach. Appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Alrighty, coming to London soon, one chubby Asian with a great attitude. And I'm going to apologize in advance because here comes that jingle.
It's the model of the day, the model of the day, the model of the day.
Today's model of the day is an incredible Imperial Fist repulsor by Max's Minis on Instagram. In a word, wow. So much care and work was put into creating realistic battle damage. You can see the pockmarks where the bolt of fire has dug into the armor plates, and it looks absolutely amazing. I am very, very impressed with this model. If you have a model that you think we should feature in the show, or if you've seen a model that should be featured, let us know with our hashtag on Instagram, hashtag 40K Today, or toss us a message on Facebook. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for joining us. A big thanks to our content producer, Alex Painter, our social media superstar, Tanya Gates, and our technical producer, Seamus Ronan, for all of their hard work once again in putting this program together. If you have a favorite content producer that you'd like to see featured in the show, drop us a line, as we are always looking for great stuff to highlight. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, for the 40K Today team, I'm John Damaris, and that's what's happening on 40K Today.